Right, good morning everyone.
Morning, Chair.
Welcome councillors, officers and members of the public to the meeting of Strategy and Resources Committee. Reminder to switch your mobile phones to silent. There are members of the public press attending this meeting virtually. Can I please ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption during the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. Reminder for councillors to ensure that those attending virtually and in person can hear the proceedings, and please call by your councillor surnames. In the case of Ricky Knight and David Knight, you can say the first names too. Basically, thank you very much for coming. There's no planned fire alarm, and if that sounds, then you'll be officers will direct us to the meeting point. Thank you very much. Right. Members, I have another important meeting at 11 o'clock to get to. If the meeting goes on past that point, then I'll be asking the Vice Chair, Councillor Warden, who kindly will take over from myself. So, let's start the meeting. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, I received apologies for absence from Councillors Bell, Clayton, Crabb and Maskell.
Thank you very much. To approve as correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of September 2023, pages 5 to 22. Just for members' information, in future the officers will put Ricky Knight and David Knight in front of the word Knight because they've got the same surname to avoid any confusion. Do I have a mover?
Yeah.
Seconder?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much. No items on item 3 to be brought forward by the Chair. Declarations of interest, anyone? No declarations of interest, thank you. Item 5 to agree agenda part A and part B. There is no part B, so all in favour that we carry on? Yeah.
I think you don't want us to stay behind after.
Oh yeah. There will be after the meeting. If Mr. Triggs has asked if you could just have a briefing with members for about 15 to 20 minutes. Item 7, Ilfracombe Housing Infrastructure Fund, pages 8.
I don't think so.
Nice try.
Oh, sorry. That's me trying to rush things along.
Yeah.
Right, item 10.
Start the way.
Right then, item 6, we've got Councillor Ricky Knight here, who's the lead member on this, and we've got the climate officer as well. So item 6, 2023 update to North Devon's Council's Carbon, Environment and Biodiversity Plan. Very big plan. I've read it all, and I like the action points behind, but I'm sure Ricky's going to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. I defer to my colleague Donna Sibley to present the plan. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, apologies. It is a big plan. It's a mirror image of the Torridge plan, which obviously makes it easier for me working across both councils if I've got one plan to work to. So we inherited the Torridge model, and we will try and improve it for next year, so it is not such an arduous read. So just a bit of background. In 2019, North Devon Council declared a climate emergency. There were some commitments around that. We'll help to reduce North Devon's carbon emissions to net zero by 2050 at the latest, which is in line with the current UK government policy. We will reduce our organisation's carbon emissions to net zero by 2030, and that we'll produce a carbon plan. So the first plan was produced last year. This is the first annual review. Part 1, which is all the text, it sets the scene. It explains that climate change is happening and that it's human-induced. It reports our carbon footprint as a council. And there's a section linking to the Devon Carbon Plan, which was published last autumn. There's sections covering the role of planning and the local plan review, how we work with the biosphere to deliver our biodiversity commitments, sections on the role of staff and members, including the importance of the climate action team in terms of helping the council to monitor and report progress and then there's a section on risk management. And then the bit that's sort of more important really is the action plan, which sets out the actions for each of our 7 priorities. In terms of energy, we have completed energy surveys and we've started to install new, more efficient lighting at Frinsworthy. And we started looking at renewable energy. I'm hoping to get a final report that we need back. It was meant to be last week, but hopefully this week. And we've also started work with colleagues across the districts and at County Council on a Devon local area energy plan. In terms of transport, we were doing a fleet review with the Energy Savings Trust. Unfortunately, the government pulled the plug on that programme earlier this year, very suddenly. So the funding's been withdrawn, and so Mark Cantel and I have got a meeting next week with some of the key people here, and we'll do our own form of fleet review. It won't be as extensive as the one that the Energy Savings Trust did, just because we don't necessarily have all of the skills that they have, but it will get us to a point of understanding how we're going to move our fossil-fuelled vehicles to either electric or alternatives. We started moving to electric vehicles with a trial, and that is also going to be part of the meeting that we've got. And just to be aware, the waste and recycling fleet, it can't be electric. Electric waste and recycling lorries are not suitable for the rural rounds that we have and with all the hills that we've got. So I really don't know what we're going to do with that yet. We don't have a solution, but it's certainly something that is discussed on a regular basis, isn't it? Local plan review, I don't want to say anything about that because it's been quite a tortuous experience and it's not quite resolved, is my understanding, but the local plan review is obviously going to be quite important in helping to deliver some of our commitments. We also talk about the Devon Carbon Plan in relation to planning. There's quite a big section in the carbon plan about that. And obviously the role of biodiversity net gain, which we were expecting to be introduced relatively soon and which has been delayed slightly by government. In terms of the biodiversity actions, we've started looking at carbon offsetting with the biosphere, and Andy Jones is working with colleagues across Devon on a Devon tree strategy. The programme of grounds maintenance and wildflower meadow management, tree planting and so on, that's obviously ongoing and has been very successful. And we have a nature recovery plan in place with Biosphere, which is also ongoing in terms of how we're delivering that. Waste and recycling, we're delivering Devon's resource and waste strategy. That's something that Paul Burton and his team are just carrying on with. Similarly, with the circular economy and green economy stuff, those actions are things that myself and Dominique Dunbrook generally are just keeping going with, and the same with the Plastic Free North Devon Consortium. In terms of the council, we do an annual review of our carbon plan, and I also do an annual review of our carbon footprint. We've started working with Sarah Hambleton on sustainable procurement and looking particularly at social value. We've introduced a new part to capital projects, which picks up some of the carbon and environment issues that we want to make sure are embedded within our capital projects. Support and staff for members, we've got training in place. I know there's some issues about members being able to access that training, and now that Zoom's been introduced and the IT team have got a bit more time, they've promised me that they're going to have a look at that. Ethical investments, that's ongoing with John and Adam. And comms, we've got great comms support from Sophie Britton and the comms team, and again she does regular newsletters and press releases and lots of social media. And then finally, the last chapter is actions around our community. We've started working on adaptation, and there's a regular programme of community events that not only myself go to, but also people in the waste and recycling team and other teams. And fuel poverty, we're doing a lot of work with that, and that's been a really successful programme headed up by Wendy Slate in the housing team. Low carbon economy is ongoing. We're working in Torridge on the Clean Maritime Innovation Centre and looking at hydrogen economy and what that might mean for the 2 districts. Shop local work is ongoing with Hannah Harrington and her team. And there's obviously work with the Devon Climate Emergency Partnership, which again is ongoing. Myself and Mark generally do that. So that's it. It's a very, very quick canter through what the carbon plan is, but if anyone's got any questions or comments, I'm very happy to try and answer them.
Councillor Ricky Knight.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Donna. I stand in awe of the amount of work that's gone into this, because I did read the original report, and hands up, I failed to realise that this, what we have in front of us today, is the update, the second column on page 25 to 85. So I do recommend that we've got a heck of a lot of reading to do this week. But if you do have a chance to have a look at page 25 to 85, second column, it tells us everything we need to know. I commend this report. We've had our first meeting, by the way, but as you can imagine, going through this document within the hour we had as a CAT team was probably, well, too short. So it's ongoing, it's an annual review, and in a sense, I commend this report and propose it, but on the understanding that if we don't put it forward now, it's going to run into next year, and it's going to have to be reviewed all over again. I wouldn't wish that anyone, let alone yourself, Donna. Yeah. So, yeah, I know there are comments which we will listen to, and questions, but as such, I do thank you for the report and propose it.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, I was interested when you say about getting electric vehicles or replacing our stock with electric vehicles, and the unsuitability of electric vehicles for the rural areas.
It's
Can you
specifically,
explain that?
it's the waste and recycling fleet. So the waste and recycling lorries are very heavy, particularly when they're fully laden. And we've got very long rural rounds, and we've got quite steep hills, and the electric waste and recycling lorries that are on the market at the moment that are being used in Kensington and in inner city areas, they just can't cope with the hills and those long rounds. The battery charge isn't good enough. We trialled one in Torridge, it failed to get out of the hill at Bideford. So, we know that it's not going to be suitable for North Devon at the moment. Batteries may improve, there may be hydrogen vehicles, or there's alternate fuels. So there are options, but at the moment we're just sticking with what we've got until we're confident that there's a solution that's going to work for North Devon.
Yeah, I fully understand it. And you've answered what I was going to say. Are they working on another phase or another section of vehicles that could be suitable?
Yeah, so it's ongoing, but there's nothing proven on the market as yet.
Okay. Mark, I see your hand up. Is it on that particular point?
It is, yeah. Just to say that we've already trialled one electric vehicle in the Parks service, which was very successful, and we're trying another one. Hopefully, should arrive in the next week or so. The work horses in the Parks fleet are the tippers. So we're trying to get hold of one of those, an electric version of those, just to see how they work. If that's as successful as the Mercedes Sprinter that we used recently, then I think there's a real opportunity for us to electrify the Parks fleet. It's just sort of 8 vehicles, and then we can roll that out to small vehicles in the council. We've ordered some new roam equips and the larger recycling trucks, and they are suitable, or they can be converted to HBO as a fuel source. All I would say is just cautionary note is that other authorities in Devon have tried HBO on some of their recycling trucks, and it has caused quite a few mechanical problems. And the roam equips are they're the workhorses of the recycling fleet. So getting the brand new ones in is great, because I think that will, they'll be more efficient than our old 10-year-old ones that we're using at the moment. So that's a positive step from a reliability point of view and, I guess, an emissions point of view. But those engines can be converted. We could look at maybe trialing one of those, but I'll be reluctant to of course, mechanical issues can leave that brand new fleet when it arrives next year.
Thank you. Councillor David Knight.
Yes, Chair. I'm not pleased, but I am pleased that the motion is going away from the electric powered large vehicles, because we did discuss this on the CAT team until the cows came home, and it was pointed out several years ago that yes, the vehicles need to be changed, but however, there was a greater issue which hasn't been mentioned, is the power supply to Grimsworthy, because if we had 50 large vehicles and we plugged them in all at the same time, you would find the lights would go dead in the Barnstable, because there isn't the capacity in that cable to support many recharge vehicles being recharged. And we've gone round this over and over again, and I think actually the capacity of an electric lorry, the larger vehicles, I'm not sure, I'm not optimistic, unfortunately, on how that's going to be delivered. So I think we do need to put our time into investigating the other options.
I am only investigating the other options. I'm not interested in the electric waste and recycling lorries at all. I've got to be honest. I just don't think we're going to get there in time.
I think we are going in the right direction. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Councillor Ward and then Councillor Lever and then Councillor Crowes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. This fleet review, which the government unfortunately seems to have withdrawn the funding, was that a national scheme, or was it they picked out certain local authorities and were basically asking local authorities in one or two places to join it?
No, it was free consultancy provided through the Energy Savings Trust, and any local authority or public body can apply. So we applied and we started work. Mark and I were having conversations with them and getting the data that they needed, and they needed quite a lot of data from the waste and recycling fleet. And we'd started it all off, and we thought we were going to get somewhere, didn't we, Mark? And then literally overnight, we just got an email that said the government's pulled the funding and we can't complete the work. So yeah, that team has now disbanded the Energy Savings Trust, unfortunately. It's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lever.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. It's really comprehensive update. I'd be happy to second approval of this. But I would ask that can we have a look at reporting and monitoring this in much the same way as we get quarterly financial monitoring. I think it'd be very helpful for members and very helpful for people in North Devon to be able to plot our route towards carbon neutrality in 2030. So if we know what, in terms of figures on the spreadsheet, if we know what we're aiming for, then at least we've got a better idea of how we're doing.
It takes about 3 weeks to produce the carbon footprint for the council, and there's quite a lot of data that goes into it, and there's some quite tricky calculations. If I have to do a quarterly update, that's going to be 12 weeks potentially that I'm spending on doing the carbon footprinting. So I think we'll have to have a chat at the Climate Action Team about what you want reported on a quarterly basis in terms of figures on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that while it's still words, that nobody's got a real idea of how we're moving towards being carbon neutral. It's a huge ask to move from where we are now to carbon neutral in 2030, and we need to have I think we need to have some milestones along the way so that we can see how we're doing, and it sticks everybody to the task, really, doesn't it? If we know we've got something to aim for. But
yeah, so we have got some milestones, and when I report the carbon footprint, which will hopefully be next month, we will have those milestones, so we'll know what we need to be doing by 2025 or 2027 or 2030. But they're not going to be broken down quarterly. I think that's probably not.
Is there somewhere we can meet?
Not workable.
Because we've only got 6 years, and that's like 5 reports, isn't it? And it would seem to me that in a year's time, If we're not well down the route, then we're,
I think we just need a baseline, because just to see where we are today, and then we can
Yeah,
sort of
that's it.
do it. So if you're going to do a report next month, maybe we can have a bit more of a chat on it then. But Mr. Triggs.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously we report quarterly for the financial data and obviously the programmes that come through the programme management office. So there will be updates in terms of work that's being done, progress that's being made through the programme reporting. In terms of specific reporting, as Donna said, it's quite a complex calculation and quite time consuming to do that. To do that quarterly would obviously be quite time consuming. I think what we can look at is how frequent we might be able to report on that. Whether quarterly, probably you're not going to see much movement quarter to quarter, but certainly somewhere between that and the annual plan we can have a look at. But you will get progress through the quarterly reports in terms of work that's being done. The other thing also is you've got the corporate priorities workshop on Thursday, where you will talk about your priorities, where those projects and interventions you want to see coming forwards. So again, those things will be reported on as part of the programme reporting. But we've got to find a balance in terms of how much time we spend producing a spreadsheet that might not change much each quarter, to actually then providing something that's more meaningful for members on a periodic basis or maybe a half-yearly basis. That's what we can talk about maybe separately this meeting.
Okay. Councillor Prowse.
Joe, it's easy to focus in on some of the things we're doing, but I'm a bit more interested actually today in looking at how we can have an impact on the community as a whole. Donna mentioned about fuel poverty, and I'm just concerned because knowing the profile of the housing stock in North Devon, it's our biggest problem of all, and how we tackle that is the one way I think we can intervene and get the awareness up. I just think, I've got a mate of mine who's vice chairman of 361 Energy, nags me every week, every time I see him about, we should be doing more, and he's right. And I don't want to make work, but I think that's something that we ought to hone into, because it tends to cross portfolios as well, doesn't it? Because, obviously housing poverty generally, as well as fuel poverty, is a real issue for us. And I'd just like to, because I don't think members understand how difficult it is for people, the right people, to access the grant funding that is there. And it tends to be middle-class people that are well educated that are actually accessing the grants rather than the people that really need it. I don't want to go into details, but I just think it's an issue that this committee ought to hone in on from a housing point of view, from an environmental point of view, from a climate change point of view, and from a regeneration point of view, because I know 361 Energy have been looking at how other places have actually done blanket schemes in communities, picked on the street and do that. So I think there are other options that, and I know Wendy, as she said, Wendy State's doing a fantastic job with not enough resource probably. And I know 361 Energy wanted to produce, for instance, a bit of work to encourage landlords, private landlords, to access some of these funding things. And we were stuck in a position where we were saying we're prepared to help, but we haven't really got the resources to put in to help organise it. So 361 Energy, I think, have taken that on. But I think as a council, we ought to, I'd just like to see a report on fuel poverty purely on its own, because there are other interventions that I think we corporately could we could agree on.
So I think we mentioned that in the workshops on Thursday then to take forward as a council then. Yeah.
Yeah.
David, and then I think that you're the last
Thank
one.
you. Okay, yeah. I agree with both the last two speakers, Councillor Needham and Councillor Prowse. One of the things that we need to consider is the financial implications of all of this. And so when we sort of talk about some of the milestones, can we also incorporate within that the resources that we need to put towards it? Now, I know we might be able to get grants and all the rest of it, but if we have some indication, because otherwise what will happen is we just won't be allocating any resources to this at all. And this is such an important thing that we do need to seriously consider it.
We can put some best guesses in.
Best guesses.
For sure, definitely, in terms of the resources and the costs, but it just, Che's been really pushing hard to do energy efficiency, and the costs of that project, because construction costs have risen and so on. well, we all know it's quite a volatile time, isn't it, financially?
Yes.
So, but yes, just picking up on the housing point, Wendy has, so the government has released Eco4 funding, so it's the fourth round of the Eco scheme for energy efficiency grants, and North Devon Council specifically have offered routes for that funding, which are for the more vulnerable members of our society. So it's not the case that the grants go to the middle classes who are well off, because they're not actually eligible for those grants at the moment. So Wendy's doing some good work with 361 Energy and the Fuel Poverty Action Group on that.
Right, so members, the recommendation is that members note and approve the publication of the 2023 update of the Carbon Environment and Biodiversity Plan for North Devon Council. Obviously, we've got a corporate workshop that's happening soon, which might add and feed into this for you, allow you to update it, Donna. But yes, we've had a proposal by Councillor Ricky Knight, a seconder by Councillor Lever. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you. Now I'll go back to what I originally said, and item 7. Ilfracombe Housing Infrastructure Fund, pages 87 to 92. Report by the Head of Place, Property and Regeneration.
Thank you, members. So yeah, I'll just take you through the report. It's a fairly short report, gives you a little bit of background into what the Housing Infrastructure Fund is, and this report relates specifically to Ilfracombe. So as set out in the introduction, it's a government fund awarded through Homes England, intended to allow local authorities to front-load infrastructure on housing sites where the provision of infrastructure by the developer would mean that the housing scheme was otherwise unviable. So in May 2019, we were awarded £6.5 million to help support the Ilfracombe Southern Extension in Ilfracombe. Originally, that was to fund a school, but through a change request, it was to forward fund roads, drainage, a community building, multi-use games area, and a service school site to accelerate the delivery of those homes. There's a set of conditions that we have to meet to go through in order to comply with the funding programme. They're set out in the report for you. I'm not going to go through them. But in December 19, we entered into a contract with Homes England, agreeing to meet those conditions. We also then subsequently entered into a contract with Inox Homes, who were the delivery partner for this development, and they likewise agreed to those conditions of the funding programme. Subsequently, Inox Homes drew down the first tranche of funding, which was £614,000. That was there to enable planning permission to progress. So Homes England agreed that they could use it for design fees, etc., to bring the development forward. That's happened. Inox have secure planning permission and all the necessary consents required to commence work on site. We've also had those monies repaid to us. That figure is slightly higher, so we were repaid £619,000 because there was a small amount of interest applied to that money. So we have that money back. The remaining monies, though, now would be used towards the infrastructure itself. Inox Homes are not going to be the deliverer of the development. They have now reached a separate agreement with Devonshire Homes to build out this development. In order for Devonshire Homes to be able to use HIF funding, they would have to sign up to the same conditions of the programme that Inox entered into. And what Devonshire Homes are saying to us is that the conditions that are set out in the funding aren't competitive for them. But the big condition that's set out in 4.6 is that we have to be compliant with state aid rules, or now subsidy control rules, in order to be able to access the funding programme. We have gone through with our legal advisors, but also run that past Homes England, and the methodology that we're using to ensure that we're being state aid compliant is deemed to be correct. The roads, the drainage, which is the big, I think is about £4 million of the funding are not exempt infrastructure. So in order to meet state aid rules, we have to apply an interest rate to the monies that we loan. What Devonshire Homes are telling us is that they can borrow that money more competitively on the market. So the interest rate that we have to apply, given the methodology that both the legal advisors and Homes England have suggested we would have to apply, is higher than what they can access on the market. What Devonshire Homes aren't willing to do, because of commercial confidentiality, is advise us what that interest rate is. We have been told in a meeting with Homes England that whilst they could extend the funding programme to March 24 for delivery of the infrastructure, any extension beyond that would need Treasury approval. We all met, so Homes England, Inox Homes, Devonshire Homes and ourselves met on the 7th of September to talk to Homes England about whether there was any other way forward that we could look to proceed with the HIF funding. And Homes England were unable to see a way forward. We took it away and said that we would continue to work with Devonshire Homes to see whether there was any way that we could look to make that interest rate more competitive. We are still doing that, but I think it is highly unlikely, and Homes England are going to continue to put pressure on us to either find a solution or to withdraw. And there's an awful lot of infrastructure that needs to be delivered before March 24, and they are not really on site. They've demolished, but they are still in the process of procuring a contractor to deliver the main infrastructure. So what Homes England is saying to us is that they think that we are going to have to withdraw from the fund, and there are two options that we can, two ways that we can do that. We can either mutually withdraw from the HIF scheme, or Homes England can terminate the fund. We believe as officers that mutually withdrawing from the fund would be the better way forward. We can manage the communications around that, and Homes England would work with us to do that. The disappointing thing, and the reason that we have worked so hard to try and retain the money, is that the way the Housing Infrastructure Fund works is that once those monies have been drawn down and subsequently paid back by the developer, the local authority is then able to recycle those monies to accelerate the delivery of housing elsewhere. We are able to recycle the £619,000 that's come back to us, so we would retain that and be able to recycle it and use it. But we would lose the rest of the money, so 5.9 million. What we have said in the report is that we would like to write to Treasury and say, you know, we know that there are issues in Ilfracombe, can we retain those monies in that way, but outside of the HIF programme? I can give you no guarantee of that today, but that's something that we would like to do, is to be able to write. So for all those reasons, that's why the recommendation to today members is that we do look to mutually withdraw from the HIF scheme. On this particular, on the Ilfracombe Southern Extension, the Westerport one is separate and has been spent. But that we do so mutually, and that we write to Treasury to see whether there is any way that we can retain the monies in a different form.
Thank you. I think it's important that we do try and get the money as much as we can, if we can, through the Treasury, because Ilfracombe needs investment, it needs more homes, and it would be detrimental if the government don't see the way forward to ensure that a scheme goes ahead. Councillor Prowse.
Chair, yeah, I mean, the tragedy is that this is only a small part of the Southern Extension, and the other bit is sort of in the long grass or in the mud, whichever analogy you want to use. And it's a shame, because actually the more sustainable bits of the Southern Extension aren't this bit. There's a bit that would link more closely to the town centre. It's a shame that we can't find a route to use this money to unlock that other parcel. And I don't know, I'm sure you thought about it, SJ, but, I would have thought that would have been quite attractive to Homes England to be, as an alternative to say, okay, fair enough, but, we've got this other bit of work we want to do, so that we can keep that 5.9 alive.
Can I come back? So again, when we met with Homes England on the 7th of September, one of the things that we asked them was whether we could look to redirect the monies into another area. but they were adamant that that money was allocated for those particular pieces of infrastructure and that no change request could be accepted. So we could only look to be using it for the scheme that's on the table and for those pieces of infrastructure. I think the thing with this is that ultimately when we drew down the funding, it was to deliver, albeit the wider Ilfracombe Southern Extension, it was to unlock phase 1. That has happened. So in all the sort of drawing down of that early money enabled those permissions to be in place, and they now have a developer partner who is going to bring forward this infrastructure, albeit without HIF. It's that ability to recycle, and as Councillor Price is indicating, we could have then used it to unlock those phases. But if we can't convince, HIF requires a willing developer. So it's not monies that we are able to use and implement. It has to be with that willing partner. And because of the constraints of the fund, rather than anything that the local authority are putting in place, we can't see a way that we can utilise it.
Right, okay. Members, anybody else want to speak on the matter?
Chair,
Councillor Bearden?
No, I was just going to, I'll move the recommendation. I think we've got the other options, but I think, I know this blame thing, what we were stuck in the middle here, really, aren't we? And, as you said, Chair, Ilfracombe desperately needs this help. And we've only just had this announcement about Torquay being the only place getting levelling up funding in the whole of of our region, And we had the minister come to Ilfracombe, make all sorts of promises to us about levelling up. None of it is being delivered in a meaningful way. If any town in Devon should be getting any help, it's Ilfracombe. And I think we need to sort of put the other side along with this. Inflexibility over this, coupled with the lack of new funding. So I think I'd like to have a recommendation about how disappointed we are that Ilfracombe is not on the list for levelling up. But, reluctantly, I'll move those other recommendations without amendment, Chair. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, did you want to say anything different?
No. I mean, I was going to move the recommendation and thank Sarah Jane and everybody involved, because obviously clearly an awful lot of work, and probably they feel more pain than we do.
So
it's a shame. It is a shame for Ilfracombe, but I don't think we've got any alternative other than to go the way recommended, and like to say that a strong word about how disappointed we are is ideal.
Yeah,
Great.
So we've got the recommendations as set out in 2.1 and 2.2 with the added proviso that we do say that we are disappointed. I mean, myself and other people around here, we've met with the levelling up minister. That levelling up minister is no longer in post, it's someone else. Oh, what a, who is it going to be next week? However, what I'm saying is that it's highly disappointing that a place like Ilfracombe, as Councillor Prowse has just said, is one of the places that it's got the highest deprivation within the whole of Devon, and the life expectancy of residents in Ilfracombe differs vastly from other areas within Devon. That is a fact, and we've presented those figures to the Levelling Up Minister. And I think that actually, this is a well-needed scheme that would benefit residents in Ilfracombe, and I think adding that extra recommendation, as what Councillor Prowse has said, is vital. So all to the vote, please. It's been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Item 8, approval and release of section 106, public open space funds, Ilfracombe, pages 93 to 94. Report, Mark Cantel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is just a report requesting the release of some section 106 money, just over £87,000 for the construction of a new play area on Ilfracombe seafront. As you look out to sea, it's just to the left of the old putting green. It is recommended that this money is released to the capital budget, and that 2.2 has just asked that the exact location be agreed in consultation with Ilfracombe ward members. I think that has been done now because it is on the Ilfracombe Seafront master plan, and we did send a short paper out to Ilfracombe members last week, just highlighting exactly where the location was. So I'm pretty sure that's been done now. And then subject to the approval of 2.1 and 2.2, the Strategy and Resources Committee recommends council grow the capital programme by £87,023.79, and that the funds be released so the project can be delivered by NDC or Ilfracombe Seafront and project improvement team.
Thank you. Councillor Lever?
I'm going to say.
Oh, thank you. Councillor?
Yeah, some good news for Ilfracombe. So I'm delighted to actually move the recommendation. I think we can leave 2.1 in, can't we? Or because even if it's already been done, but it's really good news. Yeah, great.
Councillor Beaver?
Second.
I was going to say that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely great news for Ilfracombe. It's vitally needed, and obviously that's the wider regeneration that we've got in the plans for Ilfracombe with other projects going forward. So all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Item 9, support and care leavers, report by Ed of Customer Focus.
I don't know if we're supposed to by there, it's sort of interesting.
Maybe myself and Councillor Beardman will just say that we are members of Devon County Council as well on this one.
Morning, councillors. So this is a report regarding supporting our care leavers up to the age of 25. Up and down the country, various districts and counties have schemes in place that basically exempts all care leavers up to the age of 25 from paying council tax. It helps that transition from care into adulthood. We know that the proportion of care leavers who fall into council tax arrears are much higher than that of non-care leavers. Because of that, all districts in Devon have been working with Devon County to look at a scheme how we can best support those care leavers all over our county. Some districts are doing it slightly differently, however, the result would be the same. So for instance, Mid Devon and I believe one other have already put this through, and actually the district council are actually paying and then recharging the county. We're doing it slightly different. This proposal is we amend our exceptional hardship scheme. So basically all the money is paid out of that, which apart from the first 6 months, just in order so we can get this in place, would be borne by ourselves, which is about £6,000. After that, the cost of it is borne by the collection fund. So overall, so all preceptors of the council tax. So for us, it works out about 10% for Devon County, about 75%. But all of this is in agreement with Devon County and all other districts. So the recommendations are that our care leavers up to their 25th birthday receive council tax discount of up to 100%, depending on circumstances. If there are other people in the household, those people still have to pay their proportion, but it's just the care leaver that would be exempt. The NDC funds this scheme for the period of October 23 to 24, and also that members agree that we amend our exceptional hardship policy, which is part of our overall council tax reduction scheme, which will enable the cost to be absorbed by the overall collection fund from April 24.
Thank you, Councillor Ward.
Yeah, I'd like to move this because I think this is a really good scheme. It's a very difficult time for these people who actually leave their care provision and try and become independent, and I certainly would support this.
Councillor Beaver.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll second it, Chair, and I think, thank you to Sarah and John. I was involved in this, so I declared the interest originally, and when you think about it, would we ever leave, our own 18-year-olds, would we say to them, it's 18, goodbye, don't have a look around, and I think, you know, it really is our responsibility as local authorities and corporate parents to keep an eye out for them and look after as they sort of move into adulthood. And I think this is a massive difference that we can make to their lives that will get them started, and I think it's, you know, credit this council that we adopt this and support them as best we can. I mean, it's fairly small amounts of money as well, isn't it? But,
Yes.
so, you know, happy to second, Chair.
Councillor Caroline Lever.
Thank you. Just really quick question of clarification. Would this be, would care leavers from other authorities also be eligible, or is it just care leavers from who've been in the care of Devon County Council?
It's just for people who've been in the care of Devon County Council. I believe what Devon County are doing for people who are moving out of area, they're going to be funding them when they move out of the area. It depends on, so if care leavers move into Devon, it will be dependent on what schemes their own county councils have in place for moving into the area. Yeah.
Right, so thank you, very good report. It's been proposed, I think it's really, really exceptional. Councillor Ward has proposed, Councillor Bevan second, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you very much. Thank you. Item 10, grant scheme, keeping North Devon connected 24 to 27. Report by the governance, Adam.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors meeting on the 19th of July noted that Go North Devon was to dissolve by the end of September. However, they would like to transfer any excess funds to the council to set up a grant scheme along the lines for which the money was originally secured. This could be circa 120,000. The recommendation is that the excess funds of Go North Devon are placed in an earmark reserve for the purpose of a grant scheme over the next 3 financial years. The grants are provided for older people or those with mobility or disability, particularly in relation to facilitating or enabling activity within our communities and town centres. The full details of the proposed Keeping North Devon Connected grant scheme are included in Appendix A, also for approval. The grant scheme is along the same lines that we use for the community council grants and will be administered by the Corporate and Community Services team. Full recommendations are in section 2 of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm just saying on your appendix, it does set out a criteria, doesn't it? I'm just you know, which is what can be funded, what can't be funded, and how to apply.
Yes.
So thank you for that one. Any questions, Caroline? Caroline Lever?
Thank you, Chair. Lovely report. Very sad news that Go North Devon is no longer operating, but I think that reflects changes in all sorts of things. But great that there's an opportunity for the council to be involved in administering these grants to help these particularly a group of people who need particular help. I have 2 questions. I see at 2.4 that the delegated power has been given to head of governance, I believe is you.
Yes.
Lovely. And then further on in the appendix, the first part of the process is for the assessment to be made by the grants officers to be able to decide whether an application is eligible or not. And I just wondered about the oversight of that, and particularly with regard to the second question, which is the eligibility criteria. I come from a world of funding in the voluntary sector, so perhaps I'm a bit pickier on this than others, but it says at various points in the appendix that running costs are eligible, excluding salaries and wages. And then later on it talks about staffing costs, so that's not really very clear. And then further on it talks about project. So for me, if I was a group applying for funding for this, I would not be clear from the information that's set out in the appendix particularly, actually what is eligible funding, what is eligible expenditure, and what is specifically what is meant by running costs.
Okay. Yes, we could look to tighten that up within the grant scheme, but it was envisaged then that it would cover direct wages and salaries.
So my specific point is about running costs, because when in the first time when it's mentioned, it excludes salaries and wages, which is clear, but then later on it talks about staffing costs. Now that is part of running costs, but it is the on costs perhaps. It is the, having an office space for somebody to work from. It is, it's those sorts of things. So it's really being it is helpful for those people who are both applying for grants, but also for officers who are seeking to assess whether applications are for eligible expenditure, if that is really clearly set out what those running costs actually are and what they are not. And this report perhaps just needs that clarity.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Triggs just wants to come in.
Yeah, I think, Chair, we can just be a bit clearer in terms of where the section talks about where grants can't be given, and as Adam pointed out, it says for the payment of staff costs, salaries or wages, so we can just make that very clear. It's those direct staff costs. Obviously, if there's other associated staff costs such as overheads or building costs, etc., then that may then become obviously attributable to the scheme. But we'll just make it clear that we'll just put in there for the direct payment of staff costs. In terms of the other question that's raised around governance, as you say, the delegation is obviously given to Adam. There are then obviously further delegations given then obviously within the member services team, obviously the grant officer, to then determine those grant awards, but they are all done under the direction obviously of the head of governance.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we've got a recommendation 2.1 to 2.5. I'll move from the chair. Anybody give me a second?
Well, Chair, I've got a question before.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm part of the second probably, but I just a little bit, I don't know whether we as a committee, obviously the grant's up to £5,000 that delegated. And then in exceptional circumstances, it can be more than that. I'm just concerned that we could be delegating what becomes quite a key decision to a single officer, whether it ought to, if it is above £5,000, it needs to come back to this committee. I just feel that we.
Well, to me, £5,000 doesn't pay for a lot these days.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the upper level,
yeah.
The upper limit could be all of it. It sort of, yeah. I mean, I just wonder whether we wanted to keep some sort of check and balance on that. And no information of the. Yeah. I'm sure Adam's probably tighter with our money than we are. It's just,
Mr. Triggs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the threshold of 5 was put in, so obviously it's only 40,000 a year. So obviously if we didn't have a threshold, the scheme could be wiped out pretty quickly with an application coming in. So we're not expecting grant applications coming in for higher than that. They will only be exceptional cases. If they are, then they will obviously come forwards for senior officers to make that decision. But it will only be in exceptional cases, similar to how we've set up other grant schemes in the council. So normally we don't bring applications back to members to then determine grants over 5.
So given that then, can we most probably say anything over 5,000 in conjunction with the leader?
Happy with that?
And members happy with that?
Yeah. I just feel that
So you've got some member in.
Members we should have input on. Yeah.
So can we change that one to involve in conjunction with the leader?
In that case, Chair, if you're happy to take that and your recommendation, I'll second.
Yeah. Okay. Would you take that one on, Councillor? Yeah. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 11, Nicholson Nursery site. I am now going to hand over to you, Dave, to take this one.
Thank you.
Because I have got to go to another meeting upstairs that I can't get out of.
Right, over to you.
Are we still calling it? Is this the long item? Is this a long item?
No, Nicholson.
It doesn't have to be.
But it might be.
Don't ask any questions.
I didn't find the report interesting. I have got my answers back to work.
Yeah, right.
I'll go
Anyway,
as quick as I can then. Okay. So in November 22, we took a report to Strategy and Resources, and where it was resolved that the freehold of the Bicklescombe Nursery site would be passed to the Ilfracombe Community Land Trust for the self-and-custom build of social rented housing scheme, which would be developed in partnership with the registered provider, that being Asda. This decision followed on from NDC receiving grant funding from the One Public Estate for brownfield land release to support housing on the site. And Bicklescombe Nursery was previously used by our parks team. They vacated that site in 2005, and we've been trying to dispose of the site since 2007. A sale in circa 2019 fell through to viability. The challenges with this site include intensive resloping topography, ecology constraints, drainage and access issues. The CLT and ASTA have, since last year, brought forward a design team to work up a detailed plan for the site. They've gone into detail which will deliver potentially 16 social rented properties in an attractive and safe environment on the property. And ASTA has since been working up financial viability of that scheme. Unsurprisingly, general build costs, abnormal site costs and a restricted gross development end value has put further viability pressures on the scheme's deliverability. A formal post-valuation process has been undertaken and established in order to deliver the scheme and reach ASTA's cost to ratio value at a break-even level. The projected land value and capital receipt needs to be reconsidered by the council as freeholders. Some of the enabling costs and works also need to be handled outside the works within the main scheme. This report therefore makes a recommendation to North Devon Council members that resources made available to NDC officers should procure and undertake the identified enabling works. This is being funded by the Brownfield Land Release Fund grant. These works will be conditionally assigned with ASTA's unconditional contract to proceed with the scheme, and that the site is transferred at nil land value on the basis that the provisions of this social rented housing scheme presents the best value for this site going forward.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Price.
Chairman, I've been sort of involved in this since the early 2000s when I remember walking around it saying, what are we going to do with this? And of course, since then it's got more and more overgrown and the problems have just multiplied. I think this is the, you know, we're not surprised, are we, with build costs and how things are at the moment. But Ilfracombe desperately needs some new affordable housing. The community is completely behind the scheme. And there used to be problems with this site, with the community before. But now that it is for Ilfracombe people, I think we should go ahead and, if we don't do this, then it'll be rack and ruin for another 10 years. We've tested the market, we've got a trail, we've got an audit trail that shows that this is the only real option for the site anyway now. So, but it is the right thing to do with it. It was probably the right thing to do with it initially, but there was political opposition at the time from some in Ilfracombe. But so I've moved the recommendations, Chair, to bite our tongues a bit and say we've got to do it.
Yeah. Can I have a seconder? If not, I'll second it myself. Yeah, Councillor Wiedemann.
We feel like spokespeople for Ilfracombe.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
Why is that?
So, any points that you want to make to Helen? No? Okay, well.
Just to say thank you to her. Helen's put a huge amount of work into this. We've tried self-build as well. We've tried all sorts of options, but you know, in the end, this is the right way around. And a community land trust will mean that it's delivered with community support. So it's right.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Lever.
Yeah, there was just one question. I mean, you know, happy to support this. Have we any idea on the timescales for delivery of those?
They need to be starting on site by March 2025.
Okay.
So we're looking to go into conditional contracts now, and then unconditional once they've got planning. As soon as they get that and got a contractor in place, they will start on site.
Yeah, can I echo what Councillor Francis said about how much work you put into this, and everyone that's been involved has been an ongoing saga for a long, long time, hasn't it? Okay, all those in favour of the recommendations, please show. That's unanimous.
Mr. Parkhouse.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that was short and sweet, wasn't it? Okay, so I think we've come to the end of the agenda, haven't we? In which case, thank you very much for your attendance. But